Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to sketchbooking, it can be really challenging at first to decide what sketchbook you should buy. There are so many different types and it can be super overwhelming at first. You might ask yourself, what size do I get? What paper type do I get? What purpose will my sketchbook have? Do I get hardcover? Do I get softcover? Do I get hardbound? Do I get ring bound? There's the prices to consider, there's the orientation to consider, there's the page count as well. In this video, I want to break down the 3 questions you should ask yourself when it comes to picking up a new sketchbook. I'll talk a little bit about how these factors come into play when it comes to decision making. Hopefully by the end, you'll have a better idea of what kind of sketchbook is right for you. And stick around to the end because I'll give you specific recommendations depending on your situation. Before we get into it, I would love it so much if you consider giving this video a thumbs up if it's the kind of content you like to see. I'd also massively appreciate it if you consider subscribing to this channel. I'm on a mission to make my first 1,000 subscribers, so every little helps. It also massively helps if you watch this video all the way through to the end, even if that means leaving it on in the background. I'd really appreciate it. In case you're in the mood for a bit of shopping as well and you fancy checking out Arteza or Ohuhu or Amazon, there are my affiliate links in the description below. It doesn't cost you any extra to use them, but if you do make a purchase, I get a small percentage, which massively helps support this channel. With all that said and done, let's get into the video. So the first question that you want to ask yourself is, what will my sketchbook be used for? Are you going to be using it for pencil sketching? Or are you going to be using it for painting? Are you going to be using it for mixed media? Because what you use your sketchbook for will ultimately determine what kind of paper you're going to want to pick. Let's talk briefly about paperweights. That's the pounds or the GSM, the grams per square meter that you see on the front of a sketchbook, not the little glass things that you put on your letters or your bits of paper. The higher the number, the heavier the paper will be. And heavier paper tends to be thicker and more durable when it comes to using wet media. Lightweight paper up to about 90 GSM or 60 pounds will be great for sketching and very light pencil work. You can also use stuff like charcoal and other dry media in very lightweight paper. Between 100 GSM and 130 GSM, that's 70 to 80 pounds. That will be suitable for media including pens, although markers might still bleed through the page. From 140 to 260 GSM, that's 90 to 110 pounds, the paper will be more resistant again. Then you can get up to 300 GSM or 140 pounds. And that kind of paper is really ideal for wet work such as watercolor. Even with all of those numbers that I've just spouted out at you, that's not to say at all that you can't use wet media on lighter paper. I often paint in my favourite sketchbooks, and many of them are between 120 and 160 GSM. Still resistant paper, but not quite necessarily the ideal paper for painting on. The reason I'm okay with it is because I know that they're not gonna be finished pieces. I'm not gonna sell them. They're literally just for practice and playing around with media. It's just worth bearing in mind how wet media might affect lighter paper. For example, lighter paper, if you use watercolor on it, it might not necessarily absorb very well, or the paper might tear and warp. But if you're comfortable with this, then there's no reason you can't get away with a lighter sketchbook and using wet media in that as well. Now, the second thing to consider is how durable do you need your sketchbook to be? Basically, is it very important to you that you protect the contents within the sketchbook? This choice will ultimately affect whether you go for a softcover sketchbook, hardcover sketchbook, hardbound sketchbook, or a ring-bound sketchbook. You can get softcover ring-bound sketchbooks and you can get hardcover hardbound sketchbook, which is super confusing, I know, I'm sorry. So what is the difference between a softcover and a hardcover sketchbook? Softcovers can be made up from things like leather or paper. They tend to be quite bendy and flexible. Hardcovers, however, tend to have quite a thick board and much more resistant to bending. Ring-bound versus hardbound sketchbook is basically what kind of spine the sketchbook has. Ring-bound being made up of consecutive rings that keep the pages tied together, and then hardbound having a kind of fixed, sturdy spine. Essentially, do you you anticipate needing to take your sketchbook out and about? Or is it super important to you that you protect the pages of your sketchbook? If that's the case, chances are you're going to want it to be more durable. Sketchbooks with a hard cover, so that's usually a thick board or something similar, tend to be the most durable. They're more resistant to bending or knocks from heavy objects. So softbound sketchbooks are more flexible, which can have its own benefits too. For example, if you want to open it all the way up and fold it back on itself, then that can be pretty handy. Arguably, the best in between for durability and portability, which I'll talk about in the next question, is a hardcover ring-bound sketchbook. The benefit of the rings is that you can open the sketchbook all the way up, fold it back on itself, and ultimately take up a smaller space, which is really great if you're out and about, which I'll discuss in portability in a minute. However, it is worth bearing in mind with a ring-bound hardcover sketchbook that even though the cover is hard and durable, which will protect the pages, the rings of the spine can be prone to damage. If they take a heavy knock or they get warped out of shape, it can mean the pages of the sketchbook come out. So that's just something to consider as well. Probably the most durable book is going to be a hardcover, hardbound sketchbook. So if you're happy with it taking up a larger space, being a little bit less flexible, not necessarily folding back on itself, then this is probably a great one to choose. So yes, asking yourself what kind of durability you need from your sketchbook will help you determine what kind of cover you pick. Now the third question that you should ask yourself is, do you want your sketchbook to be portable? This does massively follow on from the durability question because the portability is also affected by the binding of the sketchbook. For example, a ring-bound sketchbook, it might be more portable than a hardbound sketchbook. Portability also impacts the size of the sketchbook and therefore ultimately the weight of the sketchbook too. The lightest sketchbooks you're going to find are likely to be affordable softcover sketchbooks. These are going to be sketchbooks that don't necessarily have a massive page count, but they might have a kind of soft card cover. This makes them super light, it makes them quite flexible, and as well as being light, they're probably going to be quite cheap as well. And if you're not fussed about protecting the contents within, then it's going to be a good option for you. For example, a nice softcover sketchbook will be really great on a flight or on a train, just somewhere where you're not so fussed but you want to get your doodling in anyway. If you want a really portable sketchbook, then it's worth considering the size. A typical go-to sketchbook is going to be something about A4 in size, which will fit in probably most medium-sized rucksacks or even laptop bags. Smaller might be suitable as well. You might not necessarily want to opt in for a really big sketchbook if you want it to be portable, but again, that's down to preference. A large sketchbook you can just sling under your arm and take it with you if that's what you want. And if you don't need your sketchbook to be portable, you can get any size you like. So you've considered the purpose of the sketchbook, the durability of the sketchbook, and how portable you need the sketchbook to be. As a sort of bonus question, it's worth asking yourself, how much do you want to invest in a new sketchbook? All of the features that I've discussed, such as paper type, binding, and size, are going to have an impact on the price. I believe massively that art can be made with affordable materials, hence me teaming up with Arteza, affiliate link in the description. You can always play with what you have or buy what you can afford until you've had a better idea of what you like. You can always invest more later. As promised, here are a few of my recommendations depending on your situation. If you have limited workspace, I'd recommend going for a mid-size ring-bound sketchbook. It can be hardcover, it can be softcover, it doesn't matter. The benefit of the ring-bound spine means you can fold it back on itself and it takes up less space. If you're going to use a lot of wet material, such as paint or watercolour, I'd opt for a sketchbook with paper that is greater than 140 GSM or £90 or even higher than that. It will give you the best resistance and also durability of the paper itself when it comes to painting in your sketchbook. If you want a really durable sketchbook, one that you can take around with you that will also protect the contents of your sketchbook, I'd aim for anything with a hard cover. You can get hardbound or ring-bound, either is fine. Just remember the extra space you'll need and the risks associated with having a sketchbook that has a ring-bound spine. If you really want a cheap and light sketchbook that you can just throw around and doodle in as you go, and it isn't so important to you to protect the images within, then just grab a simple sketchbook with a soft cover. The paper can be 130 GSM or £60 or less, and it doesn't need to be special, it will do the job just fine. So there you have it. Let me know in the comments if this has been helpful. Let me know if there's anything else that you think you should consider when buying a new sketchbook. I'd also love to hear if you have a favourite sketchbook. Feel free to recommend it to me or to anyone else in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed and I can't wait to see you again for the next one. Bye guys!